Welcome, everyone. It's good to be with you all here in this digital space as we live stream worship from the sanctuary. It's good to know that you're all here, whether you are taped to the pews or whether you are in your living rooms or you're on your screens, wherever you are. It's good to be with you. As well, because we broadcast this cartoon, you'll notice that Jesus was no mechanic. But one thing that isn't dead is that we would like to make sure that we augment the singing here and it livens up our worship. So, for example, this morning we have Rod Coates, who is assisting with the music this morning, and I'm so glad that you were willing to do that, Rod. He's got the royal wave going on. Hem, hem, hem. But it is so good to have people. Contact David Hamilton. He'll schedule you in if you're willing to do that. It really does make a big difference. I also want to say a big thank you to David Hamilton and Rod for leading us in music this morning. David has also been doing an extra bit of work ever since we realized that we were needing different copyright for what David performs by himself on the organ, because we have this now saved on our YouTube channel. Therefore, we've got to make sure the copyright is satisfied, and he does an enormous amount of work on that. So thank you, David. Sarah McKenzie, who puts the slide presentation together. Jim and Judy Zarubik, who as usual are up in the balcony taking care of the tech and making us look and sound good. Stu Metzger, who looks after the building and cleaning and heat and all of that sort of stuff. John Phillips and Liz Dillman, who take care of all the finances. It's wonderful to be all together with you. As a result, we read the screens a lot. And when we read the screens, whenever you see red print in bold, it is for the worship leader, in this case for me to read, and the black print in bold is for everyone to read together. So let's practice that as we acknowledge the land on which we are privileged to gather. Jesus calls us into the world to love one another as we are loved by God.
As we came to this land, First Nations peoples welcomed us, sustained us, and taught us. We did not hear them when they shared their vision.
In our zeal to tell them the good news of Jesus Christ, we were closed to the value of their spirituality.
We confused Western ways and culture with the depth, breadth, length, and height of the gospel of Christ. We imposed our civilization as a condition of accepting the gospel.
As a result, the image of the Creator in us is twisted, blurred, and we are not what we are meant by God to be.
In our journey toward reconciliation, we acknowledge this day that we gather for worship on the traditional territories of the Saugeen Ojibwe and the other indigenous peoples who preceded them, the original nations of this land. And we acknowledge with respect their history, their spirituality, and their culture.
There are a few announcements that I would like to highlight this morning. First of all, congratulations to Julia and Stu Metzger, because they now have a new great-nephew named Wesley Bruno. We just don't have a picture of the wee one yet, but they're just bubbling and brimming with pride, so congratulations. As well, as you may have noticed, it's a little warmer out these days, and the snow seems to be mostly gone, at least until it arrives back again sometime in the spring. But it's happy growing season, so we're looking for volunteers who can adopt a tray of young seedlings until the May planting to support Chalmers Community Garden Project, which is something that we focused on in September of last year as part of our Mission Sunday. Your sunniest winter will work, so contact Krista Ritchie. The information is in the announcements carried on our website. As well, you may have noticed I have a beard these days, so you can decide what I do with it. Do I keep growing it until July the 1st so I look like some sort of shaggy old hermit? Or do you decide that I'm going to shave it off and once again return to the pristine smoothness? Well, okay, that's taken a little too far. just getting rid of the beard by shaving wouldn't be a bad idea, some would indicate. If you donate to the church, to Kincardine United Church, put on the donation either shave or grow. And if you do that all by Sunday, April the 25th, whoever donates the most money and a combination of time and talent points, so if you wish to volunteer for a new position somewhere within the church, feel free to do so, and I will send you an email saying how many points that you have accrued because of that, and you too can vote by your time and talent. Let's see how well we do. A week from tonight at 7 o'clock, there will be a service of prayers for healing live streamed in the Iona tradition. After all, the pandemic has affected many of us in ways that we often keep hidden. So allow this service to be a time when we live stream that you can find healing in the Celtic tradition practiced on the Scottish Isle of Iona. As well, we have our services stored on our YouTube channel. We keep about 4 or 5 there every, about a month's worth of services are kept there, as well as our fireside chats. Services will continue to air on Rogers Cable 6 until a week later. I must be hitting the microphone somehow. Anyway, you can find that all there. Now, Holy Week. A lot can happen in 7 days. But the Community Holy Week services will not be offered this year, once again, because of the need for COVID safety protocols. We canceled it last year just as we were into the pandemic. And Kincardine United Church, however, will be live streaming a Good Friday service on April the 2nd, beginning at 10:30 in the morning. So feel free to join us for that, and that way there will be at least one worship service during Holy Week that you can take the time to partake. There is also fireside chats that are posted every Tuesday, and there's some humor, a reflection, some music, a prayer, and a blessing. And I would invite you to explore that on our YouTube channel. As the church has done for millennia, I greet you. May the peace of Christ be with you all.
And also with you.
And I would invite you to share that peace, even though it might feel a little weird, with whomever's in the room with you, or with those that you think of who are distant from you. Peace. As we recognize God's eternal presence amongst us, within us, and around us, let us prepare ourselves for worship. The light of Christ shines among us. It becomes our beacon and our pathfinder. May it ever be so as we walk in these pandemic times. Amen. Let's join together in the call to worship and prayer of approach that you'll find on your screens. Did you notice? Yesterday was officially the first day of spring. Come this morning as we encounter the seasonal blooming of hope.
Yet here we are, still worshiping digitally, still isolated, all while public health officials tell us we are at the start of a third wave. It doesn't feel that hopeful to us while we are still mired in this pandemic.
Come then as those feeling broken, as those feeling lost, as those who feel weary and ill-equipped to capture the hope of spring's new life.
Well, that feels more authentic, but what is the point in our coming?
Oh, okay, come to encounter the living, loving God who makes all things new. Come to be transformed by the strength of our walk of faith despite suffering.
We come then, skeptical yet hopeful, doubting yet wondering.
Come as you are to commune with God in prayer.
Loving God, we don't know we have the endurance for this pandemic, for our feelings of despair and brokenness overwhelm us. Touch us in this time of worship that we may know your grace. Open our hearts to your possibilities for the future by trusting you. Encourage us through Spirit's strength to persevere nevertheless. Teach us the bonds of loving that are rooted in you. We ask it all in the name of the defeated yet risen Christ. Amen.
Let's join together in our first hymn, Let Us All with Gladsome Mind. Sometimes, when we become overwhelmed, we just throw our hands up in defeated surrender, giving up out of despair. Hope is lost and we feel worthless, abandoned, alone, forgotten. When all else is thus stripped away, we discover we are not alone or forgotten. The risen Christ walks with us. His scars mute witness of his understanding. The Spirit moves and blows people into our circles to support and to love us. This is the unbounded grace of God at work, even in our most painful challenges. For all of us, God's grace is always and forever here. In gratitude and in thanksgiving for God's unconditional blessing of grace, we open ourselves fully to the intimacy and transparency of prayer as we confess our deepest needs for healing grace. Let us pray. Amen. I have a video to share with you, and I want to preface it by saying, in this particular video, it starts off with what would seem to be an incredibly hopeless, desperate, and a situation that couldn't possibly be remediated. Yet, what the people of this area of Kenya needed from the very beginning, despite all their hard work and their intentions, they needed to recognize what was already there underneath the despair and the poverty that they felt. Let's watch. So in a time and a place where all they could see was death and desolation, if they just changed how they lived their lives, how they practiced their farming, what was already there could once again sustain life. Out of the desert, out of the dried out soil, new life was brought back. May it be so in our living as well. As we think about that and pray for it, let us share the words that Jesus gave us to pray, saying,
Who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And do not put us to the test, but rescue us from evil. For yours is the dominion and the power and the glory, forever. Amen.
Join together in the responsive psalm. You will find that we will have a refrain at the beginning and the end, and David will play the music for that refrain. Then we will sing it. Then we will read the psalm as indicated on the screens, and then a final singing of the refrain. Happy are those who live a blameless life, who follow your law, O God.
Happy are those who keep your decrees, who seek you with their whole heart.
They also do no wrong, but walk in your ways.
You have given your precepts for us to keep diligently.
Oh, that my ways might be steadfast in the keeping of your statutes.
Then I will not be put to shame when I hear all your commandments.
I will truly thank you from the heart when I learn of your righteous decrees.
I will keep your statutes. Oh, do not utterly forsake me.
Let's join together in singing the second hymn, When I Survey the Wondrous Cross.
Our scripture reading today is from Hebrews chapter 5, verses 5 to 10, from the paraphrase, The Message. No one elects himself to this honored position. He's called to it by God, as Aaron was. Neither did Christ presume to set himself up as high priest, but was set apart by the one who said to him, "You are my son. Today I celebrate you." In another place, God declares, "You are a priest forever in the royal order of Melchizedek." While he lived on the earth, anticipating death, Jesus cried out in pain and wept in sorrow as he offered up priestly prayers to God. Because he honored God, God answered him. Though he was God's son, he learned trusting obedience by what he suffered, just as we do. Then, having arrived at the full stature of his maturity, and having announced by God as high priest in the order of Melchizedek, he became the source of eternal salvation to all who believingly obeyed him.
Spirit, living and
Let's join together in prayer. Loving God, in this time of uncertainty, when we don't know what the future holds, but we know for what we hope, when the weariness of a year of pandemic weighs heavily on our shoulders, may your word be that which allows us to soar into the heavens by the power of the wind of your Spirit, to follow the way of Jesus. Amen. Did you know that it's rather intimidating for me to preach every week? I know there's a number of you that think, oh yeah, it shouldn't be too tough. Gord's been doing this for over 25 years, not a big deal. But I must tell you that I'm anxious and fearful that I'll do a terrible job every single week. I always have those butterflies within me, no matter how many times I do this. But I've been set apart for this in my answer to God's call to me into the ministry. Yet we are all called to follow Jesus. We are all called to follow that pathway that Jesus showed us. Now, when you think about the passage from Hebrews, what a strange passage it is. They're like, what is the order of Melchizedek anyway? For crying out loud, who ever heard of that except in the passage from Hebrews? What it means is that someone is set apart. Someone who is fully and completely human, like you and me, like any of us, who shows a promise, an aptitude, if you will, a willingness to change one's own life to follow the way of Jesus. And it's full, it is full of failure all the time. Even though we're set apart, it's full of tragedy. It's full of mistakes, because that's what we learn from. And when you think of Jesus, Jesus wasn't a particularly successful person. Oh, sure, at the very beginning of his public ministry, there were crowds that were flocking around him. There were all kinds of people who were eager to see what this new thing was. And yet, at that time when Jesus was coming into his public ministry, there were all kinds of prophets, of teachers, of wandering itinerant preachers who claimed that they were the Messiah, the promised one, the anointed one. And yet, Jesus never claimed that. Although others claimed it for him, he never did. Still, he had a lot of people follow him until they didn't. Lent is the time when we ponder, study, and pray about Jesus' passion. And when we say the passion, we mean that last week of his life, when the authorities, the temple authorities, the political authorities, all of those in power saw Jesus as a threat to their secure and necessary, in their minds, positions. His perception of failure, though, Jesus' perception of failure, was a very different thing. All throughout the Gospels, he tells the disciples who are following him, this is not going to end well. I can see it. And it wasn't that he was predicting something that wasn't understandable by the people who followed him. He was just looking at the political winds of tides, all of the realities that someone like him, who's trying to turn the world upside down, is not going to be tolerated. Because turning the world upside down means that the first shall be last, and the last shall be first. And yet, in the end, Jesus was arrested, beaten within an inch of his life, tortured to death by crucifixion on the cross, and buried. An utter failure. Is there any worth in his failure, in his perishing? What kind of model is that for us? Now, we have many failures in our lives, all the time. Let me use an example. The Atlanta killings is one very tragic example. The 8 names that we have, this man who apparently, according to the police spokesperson, was having a bad day. Let me tell you, these 8 murdered people were having a worse day, thank you very much. Soon Park, 74. Hyung Jae Grant, 51. Suncha Kim, 69. Yang Hyu, 63. Zaishui Tan, 49. Dayu Feng, 44. Delina Ashley Huan, 33. Paul Andre Michaels, 54. Those names should echo in our minds. This is anti-Asian racism. This is hate. This is our failure as a society to teach each one of us about love instead of hate. What does that mean for us? What can we do? What can I do? What can I bring? What can I say? What can I sing? I'll sing with joy. I'll say a prayer. I'll bring my love. I'll do my share. But that's hard. It makes us think about other reports of increased femicide all across North America, across the world for that matter. In fact, in Turkey this morning, there was news that no longer were men and women to be treated equally in Turkish society. Oh, and we might look down our noses at them and go, tisk, tisk, tisk. But in fact, our society in Canada, right here, right now, is a man's world. Men have the privilege that women don't have. After all, is this not often phrased as a she session, meaning a recession where women have been uniquely affected by this pandemic? Because of the way our society operates, women are the first to be laid off, to be let go, to have to choose to stay home if one of them or their partner has to do so. It rests on women, and it means that there is a misogyny, or at least a sexism, that is difficult to deal with. What can I do? What can I bring? What can I say? What can I sing? I'll sing with joy. I'll say a prayer. I'll bring my love. I'll do my share. Now, it might seem easy for those words to be sung. But what can we do? What can we bring? What can we say in the midst of all of this? Is it even possible to sing? This pandemic has shown us many things wrong with the society that most of us comfortably live within. It's showing us the neglect of our long-term health care systems. It's showing us the inequity of compensation for essential workers. Those people that, clean up after us, give us the fast food through the takeout, ship all of our products here and there across the country. the healthcare workers, usually the ones on the lower end of the scale, the cleaners, the delivery people, the gig workers. It shows health and well-being of small local businesses is hugely at risk. It shows that reconciliation with Indigenous neighbors around pipelines, around fisheries, around prisons, around policing is something about which we have to worry. Not worry just because it bothers us, but worry because we need to make a difference. Because it feels like we are perishing, and the demands for reform, for new systems, and for change that embraces all people are so daunting and overwhelming. There's nothing that we can do, but we're wrong. What can I do? What can I bring? What can I say? What can I sing? I'll sing with joy. I'll say a prayer. I'll bring my love. I'll do my share. After all, consider the psalm that we read this morning. It starts off with the refrain, "Happy are they who follow your law, O God." Happy are those who live in a blameless life, who follow your law. Happy are those who keep your decrees, who seek you with their whole heart. They also do no wrong, but walk in your ways. You have given your precepts for us to keep diligently. Oh, that my ways might be steadfast in the keeping of your statutes. Then I will not be put to shame. When I hear of all your commandments, I will truly thank you from my heart when I learn your righteous decrees. I will keep your statutes, so do not utterly forsake me, because happy are they who follow your law, O God. Notice, in that psalm, there's this difficult contrast between how we fall short of God's commands, God's laws. What are those laws? Jesus told us. These are the laws of self-giving love. These are the laws that give of yourself beyond that which we would normally expect. These are the building of relationships that are the laws that live within our heart, that are carved on our heart by God's Spirit. So even when we make mistakes, even when we mess up, even when we fail to follow those laws, notice in the psalm that it says, "But do not utterly forsake me." And what Jesus showed us in his life, death, and resurrection is that grace abounds. That even when we mess up, God is there, the Spirit whispers in our hearts, and we are shown the way of Jesus. We are given the strength and the courage to follow that way, and it makes a difference. After all, when people ask, "What can I do?" we can respond. What can I do? What can I bring? What can I say? What can I sing? I'll sing with joy. I'll say a prayer. I'll bring my love. I'll do my share. You see, even the so-called least amongst us are called to this way of loving. Let me tell you a story about a street person that I know called Bill. Now, Bill had some major psychological challenges. He was ADHD, or rather, he lived with ADHD. He was living with bipolar disorder. And he also lived with anxiety disorder. He was a big, hulking man. 6'4", around 300 pounds, and yet he spoke rarely. And when he did speak, it was with a quiet, subdued voice. Whenever I would see him when we would have a Friday night dinner at one of the local churches. And whenever I would see him, he would be where I expected him, which was in the far back corner of the hall, with his back to the wall, so he could be safe. And that way he could also see who was coming, who might try and sit beside him. He only had a select few that he would allow, with whom he felt safe, and I was honored to be one of them. He wasn't an easy man to get to know, but he was the most generous person I ever met. In order to save money, he would buy a whole bunch of bus tickets at once because you could get a discount for buying a sheet of 10 tickets at a time. And he would use those as his savings, because he wouldn't buy adult bus tickets, he would buy children's bus tickets. That way he wasn't tempted to spend them, but he could cash them in. I remember traveling with him on the bus once to make sure he got safely back to where he was squatting. And he saw somebody at the bus stop, a young woman, and she was frantically searching through her purse. And he went up to her, this man with anxiety disorder, this man who was often afraid of his own shadow. And he said, "Excuse me, ma'am, can I help you?" And she said, "Oh, no, it's okay. I'm just looking for a bus ticket for my son. I can't find it. I'm sure it's in here." And he pulled out his ratty old wallet, and he tore off one of his tickets for children and gave it to her. And then he said, "Is this your start of your trip, or do you have to come back?" Oh, I have to come back." He looked into his wallet, he looked at her, and he gave her the other 9 tickets. And he said, "Here, just in case." That kind of generosity is the very kind of way, statute, commandment, if you will, that Jesus calls us to live out in the world. Oh, don't get me wrong, Bill was certainly not perfect, not by any means, no more perfect than I am. And that's going quite a distance, let me tell you. But in that moment, where there seemed to be hopelessness and no resolution, he was the one who was set apart to love in Jesus' name. In that way, I pray, we all can love one another and change the systems around us that we've come to know as being unhealthy. I pray that it may be so. In Jesus' name, amen. Let's join together in prayer. We lost our way for a while, O God, forgetting the risky path you call us to follow. Our hearts are tinder dry with regret and with longing. In the distance, we see the flickering fire of your love, and the dancing flames beckon us. The aromatic smoke brings back memories of this circle, memories of laughter and of tears, memories of song and of silence, memories of wonder and of transformation, memories of companionship and of promise. Finally, we arrive at the campfire of your love. You look up. You stand and smile. Without hesitation, you open your arms wide for a hug. As we rush into your embrace, your joy inflames our hearts. We are welcomed and forgiven. After all, the covenant is written from your heart to ours. We murmur our silent prayers of thanksgiving for the healing power of your wholeness. We look around the circle of those gathered to the rekindled flame. We see Bonnie Cole holding her sister's friend Anne in her heart, worried yet hopeful in the aftermath of bowel surgery earlier this week. Even as she remembers with gratitude her son David's recovery from a surgery last fall and his full return to work last month. We notice those warming their hands in the glow of the fire during this pandemic. The students, teachers, administration staff, and maintenance workers at schools. Those living with depression, loneliness, and isolation. Essential workers who still earn too little while risking too much. Residents and staff in our long-term care institutions exhausted yet hopeful. Business owners and laid-off workers wondering about their futures. Public health authorities and government leaders trying to balance it all. We gaze around at all of these who are drawn to the warmth of your love. Our understanding of the bonds of this family of faith deepen and continue to grow the covenant we all share with you. Yet a rising cacophony interrupts our reverie. The world intrudes. Terror and war and dislocation and hatred, environmental degradation and poverty and discrimination, ignorance and lust for power and greed and distrust, racism, sexism, xenophobia, all of it shouts of separation and of fractured relationships. We return our gaze to the blazing fire at our center, coming to understand the power of your promise, praying your promise is received the world round. The flames have slowly transformed into embers. Embers which pulse with life and which are enlivened by the law of your love. We know your covenant promise now beats within our hearts, a pulse of new life you call us to share with the world. May it ever be so. Amen. This is the Minute for Mission that we want to offer for today. It is a video put together by the United Church of Canada, and it shows some of what our mission and service dollars do, even in Canada, let alone around the world.
Did you know that 1 in 5 Canadians live with at least one disability? That's 6.2 million people. Disability is an issue that affects all of us. That's why the United Church of Canada partners with people from other denominations to raise awareness. People like Anglican disability activist Linda Katsuno, who is widely considered a pioneer in the field.
I see myself as somebody that's a child of God. I see myself as someone who can give back. It really raises a question of mutuality. I hope that's how people see me. I hope they don't see me as somebody who's unable to do something. Many people think of the issue of disabilities as people who suffer. It's social exclusion of people that leads to injustice. There is still so much more work to be done to participate in the liturgy. Liturgy means the work of the people. So we have every right to sort of claim our place at the table, and that has to be a theology that we work towards, a theology of inclusion.
Your generosity supports events and education that help create healthy, strong, welcoming communities. Communities where no one is left out, where we are all seen as children of God. Let's build a world where everyone belongs. Make a gift today.
I must admit, I chose that particular video a little selfishly because Linda Katsuno was one of my classmates when I was at Emmanuel College in Toronto. As well, early in that video, you will also see another individual, Miriam Spies, who is currently studying for her PhD, which she's focusing on disability studies within the church. These are the ways we make a difference in the world, by giving to mission and service. Many of you give often of your time, of your talent, of your treasure. Whether you do so by following pre-authorized remittances, coming out of your bank account on the 20th of the month, or whether you use the other methods that are on our website to give to the ministry of this church. Let us ask for God's blessings for all of it and for each other.
We offer our gifts to you, O God, asking for your blessing. Bless our sharing, that new shoots of hope may spring from these seeds. Bless our giving, that seeds of generosity may continue to germinate deeply within our hearts to live your mission. Bless our receiving, that we may accept your faith planted in our souls. Amen.
Let's join together in the final hymn, We Are Pilgrims. Now go as those who have been set apart by God's call to you to live the way of Jesus. May you go as those gathered by the sender of love, upheld by the one who came in love, set out in the power of love. Go in peace.